Fantastic practical messages from these three speakers. So, as a member of the audience, I hope everyone got a lot out of that in terms of different farming systems, different locations. You've got a high-spec operation like the Rethuses, really attention to detail, second to none. So we're really looking forward to going out there tomorrow. And then back to Sam, who is so innovative in his own right as a mixed farmer. So as Kirili mentioned, we have a lot of containment lots in our part of the world. We've used them for, I guess, ground cover management and keeping condition score on ewes. But the weed management perspective that Sam brought to the table from all those things with the feeding hay made on the property that mightn't be as great a quality as what you could sell as an export. So there's some really, growers just blow me away in the way they innovate and come up with ways to make use of resources that otherwise we probably don't value. And then Rick, again, excellent in terms of the systems approach to dealing with weeds and just knowing how diversity can be powerful but also profitable. So I guess the first question I'll throw out to Rick is just the challenging situation in your environment with, I guess, two things. Harvest weed seed capture and a species like brome. So I guess it's easy for us to get up here and promote the big six, and one of those tactics being harvest weed seed control. But just from my observations, particularly in a mallee environment, how are your growers and your packages coming together to sort of deal with something like brome, which is probably proving a bit more challenging than ryegrass in some of that non-chemical stuff?
Thanks, Greg. Yeah, it's a challenge at harvest time to capture brome. We all know that probably. It flicks out the front. It's pretty flexible sort of stuff. We seem to capture more in pulses, to be honest with you, but it's easy said than done. It's actually quite a hard process to use those systems with pulses because decent pulses tend to block up a bit. I haven't got the solution. There's certainly hay's part of that, if we're not looking at that side of it. But canola, cereals, probably more so, and we may be picking up 50%, 40%, possibly. More than you think, I think.
So, Rick, you were just saying that you were suggesting that the selective herbicide application was really good at sort of delaying that maturity. Is that helping capture more of that with the spray top in the pulses to try and capture more of that brome?
Yeah, so it's not delaying maturity, it's actually just...
killing the ones.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so those later ones, Tim, are coming through, and you can't catch all brome, particularly in high numbers, but... if you can catch them at the right stage with a number of passes, it just certainly makes your crop topping and even harvest weed seed capture and all those sort of things a little bit more effective. Yeah. So you've got to be pretty fussy in those break phases, Tim. Go out there and you've got big teloid brome, you're in trouble.
Yeah, so Tim, thanks Rick. In your business, how is the brome, particularly the hay aspect, is it sort of emerging in some of your blocks worse than others, or ryegrass is still...
Ryegrass is definitely number one. We have a little bit of brome probably on the Kalki Plains, but we had a lot of success actually coming in with an early, almost a triple knock. We come in and triple knock the brome when it was germinating early, and we seem to have got it in control. So brome, okay. Ryegrass, definitely an issue. Everyone would know that on the Wimmera Plains, the cell-cracking black ground's not too bad for ryegrass. It's probably more that red stuff that we've got. And then down south, Sam's Way, it's pretty much everywhere. So, and that's where the hay plays such a big part for us, because we're using it to smash that weed bank. If we can take 90% out over 3 years, there's more or less none left after the third year. And then we can go into something like canola, which gives us a fourth year with good IMI technology, because we don't use IMI down south much because we don't have lentils down there, hurricanes. So it's that stacked year progression that's getting that numbers down to a level that we can manage.
Yeah, so Sam, as a mixed farmer, how are you dealing with brome in your rotation? You talked a lot about the sheep, but what's a rotation overview?
So we don't actually have too much brome. Like Tim said, we're south, and ryegrass, that's my biggest one. And we do the same 3 years of oat and hay, and then 1 year we'll go back in with, say, a clover, or going back in with vetch to get 4 years, because, it just doesn't clean it up with 2.
So love-hate relationship with ryegrass, I take it?
Yeah. More sheep.
Yeah. Just as out of interest, within the audience, who here are either running sheep or advising growers with sheep? Just yeah, so that's good. So it's in perspective, your presentation's very targeted. So.
I'm going home. Sam, you can do the next one.
So just in terms of hay, like it's it has a reputation to you first, Sam, as not always being that effective in terms of weed cleanup for some weeds. Like say if they're early maturing, how much attention to detail do you put around that? I guess either crop topping or timing of a spray application before the cut, like Rick mentioned.
Yeah, so oat and hay. Well, the reason we do it 3 years is because there's so many escapees all the time. So doing it those 3 years, you get usually over those 3 or 4 years, you get different seasons and different maturity. It's like when you crop top your legumes, often the ryegrass is already set seed and you're putting it over more to desiccate it than to get the ryegrass, especially in my area where the season can really stretch on. And those beans, you just sit there going out there every day looking at them going, they've got to be ready. And then, they've got to be. And then finally you're like, well, I've got to kill them because I want to harvest them. So, yeah, we feel that we don't actually spray. We spray our oat and hay after we cut it. So we cut it all, bale it all, and then come in with gramoxone. And then once again, I just put the sheep out there for a light graze for only about a week and nip off whatever's left. So, try and get away from glyphosate.
So that's a question maybe to the audience is for those that make hay, if you're making hay, do you spray before or after you've cut it or at cutting? Like what's the general consensus?
Little poll, who's cutting before?
Spraying before?
Oh, sorry, spraying before cutting. Tim? Yeah. And those after? Yeah. Anyone doing both depending on the season? Yeah, that's probably, that's...
Oh, yeah, so vetch before? Oats after, yep.
And double knocking within that as well? Yep. Do you want to elaborate on that, Sam? Can we get a microphone to Sam, please?
If you're using glyphosate as your knock, using sheep as the second knock, maybe rather than paraquat application.
Okay.
Or paraquat sheep, however you want to go.
On the crop topping aspect, I'll go back to Rick here, just in terms of some of the work that Rick's done in the Mallee, where they're actually doing a double knock as part of the crop topping side of things. So it starts to add up to a few dollars, but it's obviously proving very effective. You just give a bit of an overview of some of the tactic, how it actually works and outcomes.
So Greg, double knock pulses, particularly in those better years where you've got a lot of thistles.
2016?
16 was a classic, did a lot of double knocking of pulses, so glyphosate, then a paraquat sharpen or something like that. So broadleaf more so than just grasses. But I suppose it is a double knock tool. So it works quite well, yep. So we'll select paddocks that got quite a few broadleafs in them, and we'll say, we'll double knock those ones. And I think it's part of that timing bit for summer weed control too. So you haven't let all those thistles get into that summer stage so early and putting pressure on Christmas time, the roast dinner, etc.
So Rick, on that though, like with I thought sharpen, that's an interesting little topic there. I'm tending to find that for us, we're really struggling to get it to work well. Like it's better just run the glyphosate, don't bother with the spike because it has about the same result. Are you finding there's a condition there where the sharpen's really starting to come through and really help? Because I'm not killing those big thistles.
Look, glyphosate, then paraquat's quite good. Just use a lot of it.
Okay, I'll throw it out to the floor. Is there any questions out there to the speakers we've just had up? There's a lot of topics being covered. Yep, right up the back. Booming voice.
Tim, with your distance theta, you could quite easily go to a narrower spacing. Why don't you?
That would take twice as long. No, we can't go narrow with our disc seeder because the actual physical structure of the machine can't go narrower than 15. We could get it to 12 if we replaced all the row units. But the big thing is we could inter-row sow everything and get 7.5. But that's a big thing to do across your whole program, timeliness-wise. Soil disturbance for us, we're worried about that. And I don't necessarily think we're going to get the yield benefit because there's that that compromise we have with dealing with those dry years, where in the dry years the wider rows tend to win out because we have less plants fighting each other early on. Can be done, just not with ours.
It's quite a specialised machine, I take it, Tim. It's the 24 metre NDF 15 inch.
Yeah, you've got to come tomorrow. It's going to be amazing. Yeah.
Okay. There's a question in the middle here. Yeah, there was.
Two questions. Back to Sam. You moved to the Harrington Sea District last year. Obviously, there's a reason for going that. Ryegrass has given you grief. Operational efficiency, how much did it slow you down? And the other question, no one, as a South Australian grower now, we've been opening up the GMs, the Roundup Ready colour, and no one today's mentioned it as part of their rotation as far as ryegrass control goes. Experiences?
Yeah, so my major fear is glyphosate resistance, and GM canola is glyphosate canola, so I don't see the point. I'm trying to get away from using glyphosate. So if it come out that I could grow Lontrel tolerant beans, I'd be all over it. But yeah. So, and in terms of the efficiency of the harvester, so I use the hydraulic. They've got a newer version which I believe is a lot better than the one I was using. So I'd say it's probably 30% slower and probably 30% more fuel. It's so we were using on an 8240 case header, and we had one fitted with it and one without, and yeah, you definitely know the difference. Yep, the capacity is reduced a lot. In terms of it actually working, it works fine, exactly the same as a normal header. Just turn it on and off you go. But yeah, you do lose a bit of capacity out of your header.
I think that'll be covered off well and truly by Pete Newman. The whole mill technology, there's a lot of evolution happening in that space, so that loss of capacity certainly being overcome by the manufacturers. So that's a good question.
So on the Roundup Ready, so when you head out tomorrow, you'll go past a Roundup Ready crop just opposite where the farm is. We did do that primarily to control ryegrass. That particular paddock doesn't have a ryegrass resistance issue in it, so it's about selectively picking the right places to put it. But the biggest issue I have with the GM, I have no problem with the GM, it's just getting rid of it is a pain in the arse. You take a canola down, you can take it to anywhere, you can deliver it and get rid of it. Whereas the GM stuff, usually you get a price discount and then they give you bonuses to get it back to equivalence. And then the yields usually aren't quite the same. So from my money, if I have a straight fight between the two, I'd just pick the standard hybrid Clearfield that we like to use because it's usually the highest yielding. But it's apples for apples. I don't think I'd like to push the IMI tolerance level too far, or resistance level, so mixing in a bit of RR is not too bad at the right time.
I'll just reiterate that. So we've had Roundup Ready canola in southern New South Wales, obviously WA and Vic the same, and growers have had the choice. Probably the key things that have limited us is application timing, having to get it on before 6 leaf, and some of these Roundup Ready hybrids, they fly. They just out of the ground quicker than any Clearfield canola, so it's really tricky to often get that first application on. And it's just a price discount, like Tim says. It's just it's a handy technology, but it's just it hasn't been a huge profit driver for us. There's no anti-GM aspect. It's just the logistics. So. Okay, well, we'll wrap it up there. I'll ask you all to put your hands together for these three great presenters.